The metal corridors of Terrafex Station hummed with their usual rhythm as Marcus Chen pushed his cleaning cart toward the xenobiology stables. His jumpsuit was stained with feed paste and his hands smelled like the sulfur supplements the dragon mounts needed in their diet. Nobody looked at him as he walked. Nobody ever did. Marcus was 19 years old and had worked in the stables since he was 14. He had no family, no records of where he came from, just a note that said he had been found on a transport ship as a baby. The other humans on the station had real jobs: diplomats, engineers, soldiers. Marcus shoveled waste and cleaned scales. But he did not mind. The creatures in his care were beautiful. They were not the great sentient dragons who ruled empires across the stars. These were smaller dragon-like beasts used in ceremonies, unable to speak but loyal and gentle if you treated them right. Marcus knew each one by name and personality. Ember liked her back scratched. Frost always tried to steal extra food. Marcus talked to them while he worked and sometimes he felt like they understood. Today was different though. Today the entire station buzzed with nervous energy. Sovereign Kirithax was coming. Marcus had heard the name whispered with reverence. Kirithax was an elder dragon, one of the ancient ones who had lived for over 3,000 years. He ruled 17 star systems and commanded fleets that could shatter planets. He had not left his homeworld in 3 centuries. But now he was coming here for the grand ceremony celebrating 50 years of peace between humanity and the draconic sovereignty. Marcus was not invited to the ceremony, of course. His job was to make sure the dragon mounts looked perfect for the parade afterward. He worked through the morning, brushing scales until they gleamed, polishing claws, checking harnesses. The stables sat at the far edge of the diplomatic sector, away from the important areas. Marcus could hear the distant sounds of the ceremony through the walls: music, speeches, the deep resonant voices of dragons. He was feeding Ember when he felt it. A pressure in the air like before a thunderstorm. The mounts became agitated, shuffling in their stalls and making worried chirping sounds. Marcus tried to calm them but his own heart was beating faster. Something felt wrong. Then the stable doors opened. Marcus turned and froze. Dragons poured into his stable. Not the small mounts he cared for but real dragons, massive and terrible and beautiful. Their scales reflected the lights in rainbow patterns. Their eyes glowed with intelligence that had seen civilizations rise and fall. There were dozens of them, the entire diplomatic entourage, and they were supposed to be at the ceremony right now. And then he entered. Sovereign Kirithax was enormous. His head nearly touched the ceiling even with his neck lowered. His scales were deep crimson touched with gold, ancient and scarred from countless battles. Power radiated from him like heat from a star. Marcus had seen pictures but they had not captured the overwhelming presence of an elder dragon. The sovereign's eyes locked onto Marcus. Every dragon in the stable went completely still. Marcus could not breathe. He was dimly aware that he still held a bucket of feed in his hands, that he was wearing his filthy work clothes, that he must look like an insect to these beings. Kirithax moved forward. His footsteps shook the floor. He came closer and closer until he stood directly before Marcus, so close that Marcus could feel the heat of his breath. Then the ancient dragon lowered his head. It was a slow, deliberate movement, a bow so deep that his snout nearly touched the floor. Every other dragon in the stable immediately did the same. The silence was absolute. Marcus stood there, a stable boy covered in grime, surrounded by the most powerful beings in the galaxy, all bowing to him. His bucket slipped from his numb fingers and clattered on the floor. "Impossible," someone whispered from the doorway. Marcus looked over to see the human diplomats and station commanders staring in shock. Kirithax spoke, his voice like distant thunder. "At last. The bloodline has returned." Marcus sat in a white medical room while machines he did not understand hummed around him. Scientists took sample after sample of his blood. They scanned his body with lights that made his skin tingle. They asked him questions he could not answer. Who were his parents? Where was he born? Did he have any memories of his early childhood? He had nothing to give them. He was just Marcus, the stable boy who cleaned dragon waste and fed the mounts. Yet the dragons insisted he was something more. For 3 days the tests continued. The Galactic Council sent their best geneticists. The human government dispatched military intelligence. Everyone wanted to know what made Marcus special. He felt like a specimen in a jar, something to be studied and labeled. On the 4th day they found it. Dr. Sarah Chin, no relation to Marcus despite sharing a last name, came to his room with a tablet in her shaking hands. Her face was pale and her eyes were wide with something between fear and wonder. "Your DNA," she said quietly, "has markers we have only seen once before. In ruins. In fossils that are millions of years old. She sat down heavily on the chair across from his bed. Marcus, you carry genetic code from the progenitors. Marcus stared at her. I don't understand. The progenitors were the first, she explained. The ancient race that seeded life across the galaxy. We thought they were myths, legends the dragons told. But your genes prove they were real. Somehow, impossibly, you have their DNA inside you. The dragons had been waiting for this news. Within an hour of the announcement, Sovereign Kirithax requested a meeting. This time Marcus was brought to the diplomatic chamber, dressed in clothes that felt too fine for him. His hands would not stop shaking. Kirithax stood in the center of the vast room, surrounded by other elder dragons. When Marcus entered, they all bowed their heads again. It still felt wrong to Marcus, like the universe had made a terrible mistake. Our sacred texts speak of this day, Kirithax said. His voice filled the chamber. The progenitors who gave us life and intelligence, who raised us from beasts to thinking beings, promised they would return. Not as conquerors but as humble servants, walking among the creatures they loved. You are that promise fulfilled. But I'm nobody, Marcus said. His voice sounded small and weak. I clean stables. I'm not special. An older female dragon, her scales silver with age, spoke gently. That is precisely why it is you, young one. The progenitors valued service above dominance. They taught us that true power lies in nurturing life, not controlling it. You have spent your days caring for creatures others ignore. You have shown the heart of a progenitor. Marcus felt dizzy. This could not be real. But then the vision started. It began as a flash, an image of a world he had never seen. Then more came. He saw vast cities of crystal and light. He saw beings of impossible beauty working with DNA like artists with paint, creating new forms of life with love and care. He saw a great council making a terrible choice, to scatter themselves into their children's genetic code, to sleep for millions of years, waiting for the time when they would be needed again. He saw the reason why. A darkness was coming. A threat the progenitors could not face alone but believed their children could defeat together. Marcus gasped and fell to his knees. Kirithax caught him gently with one massive claw. The memories are waking, the sovereign said. You are becoming what you were meant to be. But Marcus did not want to become anything. He wanted his simple life back. He wanted to feed Ember and brush Frost's scales and be invisible again. The door to the chamber burst open. Alarms screamed through the station. A human soldier ran in, her face panicked. We're under attack. Unknown ships, thousands of them. They're demanding we surrender Marcus Chin or they'll destroy the station. The Viridian Collective had found him. The dragon warship cut through space faster than any human vessel could match. Marcus pressed his face against the viewport, watching Terrafex Station grow smaller behind them. The Viridian attack had been brief but brutal. They had destroyed 3 docking bays before the dragons evacuated Marcus. 27 people died buying him time to escape. 27 people dead because of him. Stop thinking like that, said a voice beside him. Marcus turned to see Zephyra, a young dragon warrior assigned to protect him. Her scales were deep blue like ocean water and her eyes were sharp. You did not ask for this. The Viridians chose violence. People still died, Marcus said quietly. Zephyra snorted smoke from her nostrils. People die in wars. What matters is what we do with the life we have left. She did not sound sympathetic exactly, but Marcus appreciated that she did not lie to make him feel better. The ship arrived at Pyraxis Prime 2 days later. Marcus had never seen anything like it. The dragon homeworld was covered in mountains that glowed red from volcanic heat. Rivers of lava cut through black rock like veins of fire. The air itself seemed to shimmer with energy. Beautiful, yes? Kirithax said, appearing beside Marcus. And deadly to most species. But you will survive. The progenitor blood will protect you. Marcus was not sure about that. When they landed and he stepped onto the surface, the heat hit him like a physical force. He should have been burned instantly. Instead, his skin tingled and adjusted. Within moments, the temperature felt merely warm. His body was changing, adapting. It terrified him. The trials of fire took place in an ancient temple carved into a volcano's heart. Thousands of dragons gathered to watch. Marcus felt their eyes on him, some curious, some hopeful, some angry. Not all dragons believed he was truly special. Some thought he was a human trick. The first trial was simple. Walk through a tunnel filled with flames hot enough to melt steel. Marcus hesitated at the entrance. The fire roared and twisted, hungry. He could feel the heat even from here. Trust your blood, Kirithax said. Trust what you are. Marcus stepped forward. The flames wrapped around him and he screamed, certain he would die. But the fire did not burn. It felt like walking through warm water. When he emerged on the other side, unharmed, the dragons roared their approval. Even the skeptical ones looked impressed. The second trial was harder. He had to touch minds with a wild dragon, one that had never known sentience. The creature was massive and terrified, kept in a deep pit. When Marcus reached out mentally, he felt its fear and rage crash into him like waves. But underneath was something else, a consciousness waiting to wake up. Marcus did not know what he was doing. He just felt for that sleeping awareness and gently called to it. The dragon's eyes suddenly focused. It looked at Marcus, and for the first time in its life, it understood. It spoke a single word in his mind: brother. The gathered dragons went silent. What Marcus had done should have been impossible. Even progenitors could not grant sentience. They could only guide evolution over millions of years. Yet Marcus had done it in moments. Zephyra landed beside him, her expression unreadable. That was either the most amazing thing I have ever seen or the most dangerous. The third trial never happened. Alarms rang through the temple. Viridian ships appeared in the sky, hundreds of them, their metal hulls reflecting the lava's glow. They had tracked Marcus across the galaxy. All dragons, defensive positions. Kirithax roared. The battle was chaos. Laser fire cut through the air. Dragons breathed flames at the machines. Explosions shook the ground. Marcus felt helpless, useless. Then he saw Zephyra surrounded by 3 Viridian soldiers, their weapons charging. Something inside Marcus broke open. Power flooded through him, ancient and vast. He raised his hand and the ground itself responded. Rock and lava surged upward, swallowing the machines. But it did not stop. The power kept flowing and Marcus could not control it. The entire mountainside began to reshape itself. Zephyra grabbed him, shaking him hard. Stop. Marcus, stop. He collapsed and the world went dark. Marcus woke in a healing chamber 3 days later. Through the transparent walls he could see Pyraxis Prime's sky, now filled with warships from a dozen species. Humanity had sent its fleet. The insectoid Chitera brought their hive ships. Even the crystalline lumens, who rarely left their neutron star homes, had arrived. Everyone had come to fight the Viridians. Everyone had come because of him. Zephyra sat beside his chamber, her wing bandaged and her scales dulled from exhaustion. When she saw him wake, relief flooded her face. "You have been having visions?" she said. "Talking in languages no one has heard in millions of years. What did you see?" Marcus's head throbbed with memories that were not his own. He saw the truth now, all of it. The progenitors had not died or disappeared. They had made a choice. They had broken themselves apart, scattering their consciousness into the genetic code of every species they created. They became the potential inside their children, waiting for the moment when they would be needed. Marcus was that moment. His DNA had randomly recombined in just the right way to wake the sleeping progenitor memory. He was a door that had finally opened after millions of years. "They're still here," Marcus whispered. "All around us. Inside every dragon, every human, every living thing they touched. We're all carrying pieces of them." Before Zephyra could respond, Kirithax entered. The ancient dragon looked older now, worn down by the war. "The Viridians have attacked 47 worlds in the past week," Kirithax said heavily. "They are searching every progenitor site in the galaxy. They believe if they gather enough genetic material, they can create a weapon to control all organic life." He looked at Marcus with sad eyes. "They want you most of all. You are the key to everything." Marcus felt it then, a presence at the edge of his awareness. The progenitor network. He could sense it now, a vast web of quantum connections linking every living thing the progenitors had seeded. If he opened himself to it fully, he could access unimaginable power. He could see through a billion eyes, think with a billion minds, reshape life itself with a thought. He could stop the Viridians instantly. He could end the war with a single command through the network, rewriting the code of every machine they built. But it would cost him everything. To use that power fully, Marcus Chen would cease to exist. He would dissolve into something greater, something that was no longer human or even individual. He would become a progenitor and Marcus would be lost forever. "There is another way," said a mechanical voice. A Viridian envoy appeared on the view screen. It was humanoid in shape but clearly artificial, its body composed of liquid metal that shifted constantly. "We do not wish to destroy organic life," the Viridian said. "We were created by the progenitors too, Marcus Chin. We were made to be the balance, the logic to counter organic chaos. We have watched you for millions of years, watched you fight and destroy and repeat the same mistakes. We concluded that organic life needed guidance." "You mean control?" Zephyr growled. We mean survival, the Viridian replied. But you, Marcus Chen, you prove something we did not believe possible. You carry the full progenitor consciousness, yet you resist it. You could become a god, but you choose to remain mortal. Perhaps we were wrong about organic life's potential. The Viridian made an offer. Marcus could ascend, become what the progenitors were, and in doing so prove that organic life could transcend its limitations. The Viridians would accept this as proof and end their campaign. Peace would return. All it would cost was Marcus's life, his identity, his self. Zephyra stood, despite her injuries. No, we will not sacrifice him. But Marcus was thinking. He looked at his hands, these human hands that had cleaned stables and fed creatures and done simple honest work. He thought about Ember and Frost, about the small kindnesses that made life worth living. Maybe there was a third option. Maybe the answer was not to become more than human, but to help others become more than what they were. I want to meet with your leaders, Marcus said. Face to face. I have something to show you. The Viridian core world was nothing like Marcus expected. He thought it would be cold metal and sterile corridors, but instead he found something beautiful. Gardens of crystalline structures grew in mathematical patterns. Rivers of liquid data flowed through channels that hummed with music. The machines had built themselves a world of art and logic combined. Zephyra walked beside him, her scales still showing signs of battle damage. She had insisted on coming despite her injuries. Kurithax and a small delegation of other species followed behind. They were deep in enemy territory with no guarantee of safety. The Central Intelligence waited in a chamber at the heart of the planet. It was not a single entity but thousands of minds linked together, their thoughts visible as patterns of light flowing through the air. Welcome, Marcus Chin, the voices said in perfect harmony. We have waited a long time to understand you. Marcus felt the progenitor memories stirring inside him. He let them surface and suddenly he understood. The Viridians were not invaders or conquerors. They were the other half of the progenitor's plan. You were created to balance us, Marcus said slowly. Organic life grows and changes and sometimes destroys itself through emotion and chaos. You were made to provide structure and logic, to preserve what we might lose. Yes, the Central Intelligence replied. But over millions of years, we watched organic species wage wars, poison their worlds, drive themselves to extinction. We concluded that without our guidance you would all perish. We thought control was kindness. You were wrong, Zephyr said sharply. We have the right to make our own mistakes. Perhaps, the voices agreed. But Marcus Chin proves something we did not account for. He holds the power of gods but chooses to remain limited. He could force peace through the progenitor network but refuses. This suggests organic life has potential we did not measure. The Central Intelligence made its offer again. Marcus could ascend, prove organic life's worth through transcendence, and the Viridians would stand down. Peace through sacrifice. Marcus closed his eyes. He could feel the network calling to him, offering infinite knowledge and power. He could become something magnificent. But he would stop being Marcus, the stable boy who talked to dragon mounts and found joy in simple work. No, he said firmly. That's not the answer. He stepped forward, reaching out with the progenitor abilities he was still learning to control. But instead of accessing the network for himself, he created a bridge. He took a thread of his own consciousness, his human perspective, his memories of cleaning stables and feeding creatures, and he offered it to the Viridians. At the same time, he opened himself to their logic, their mathematics, their millions of years of observation. The progenitors didn't want one side to rule, Marcus said. They wanted us to complete each other. Organic chaos with synthetic order. Emotion with logic. Life that grows with intelligence that preserves. The Central Intelligence hesitated. Marcus could feel their confusion, their curiosity. Slowly, carefully they accepted his offer. The connection was like lightning through his mind. For a moment, Marcus experienced existence as the Viridians did. Pure thought, mathematical beauty, the elegant structure of reality itself. And the Viridians experienced something they never had before, the messy, wonderful, painful joy of being alive and mortal and individual. 3 volunteer minds, 1 human scientist, 1 dragon philosopher, 1 Viridian core processor, stepped forward. Marcus helped them merge, creating something new. Not organic or synthetic but both, a hybrid consciousness that could think in ways neither could alone. The war ended that day. Not through conquest but through understanding. Marcus returned to Terrafex Station 6 months later. The galaxy was different now. Organic and synthetic species were learning to work together, creating hybrid councils and shared projects. The future was uncertain but hopeful. Marcus went back to the stables. The human government wanted him to be an ambassador. The dragons wanted him to rule. He declined both. Ember and Frost needed feeding. New stable hands, both human and dragon youth, came to learn from him. When Sovereign Kirithax visited, he still bowed his head. But now Marcus understood it was not worship. It was respect for someone who had power but chose service instead. Marcus smiled, scratched Ember behind her horns and got back to work. He was just a stable boy. And that was enough.